Alright everyone, got something pretty interesting this week. This is an effect I saw on a website not too long ago where there was an interesting use of color and sharpness to create a really dramatic effect on a photo. And that's what we're going to do here on this image of this surfer. Looks like a regular, normal photograph. There's nothing all that exciting about it. But we're going to jazz it up a little bit. What I'm going to do is go into the layers panel, and right in here we're just going to drag this down to the new layer icon and create a duplicate of that background layer. Then I'm going to change the blend mode of this layer to Vivid Light. Let's go into the blend mode menu, choose Vivid Light, and you can see right away it's giving me a really interesting effect here. It's increased the contrast as well as increased the saturation of the image, giving it a much more interesting look. But we're going to take it a bit further by jumping over here into the channels palette. And I'm going to toggle through each one of the channels. I'm looking for the one that has the most contrast to the foreground area, which would be all this water splashing, to the background, which would be the water and the sky back here. So if I toggle through here, you can see that it looks like it's going to be the red channel. It has the darkest area up here. So let's create a duplicate of that channel by dragging it to the new channel icon. And now it makes it a red copy. Now I'm going to bring up my levels by pressing Command or Control L. And inside the levels dialog, I'm going to choose the black eyedropper tool here. And we're just going to go right up in here where the sky and is right next to the water effect. I'm just going to click once in there, and it gives a much more darker, or it forces that area to black. And I'm just going to use the slider to force the rest of the area to black. And we'll use the white slider just to increase or intensify the white areas quite a bit. We'll push those areas in quite a bit, and then we'll click OK. Well, now, instead of loading this alpha channel as a selection, which would only generate a selection of all the white areas and partial selections of all the gray areas, I want to copy and paste this entire alpha channel into my layers. So I'm going to press Command or Control A, which will select the entire document, and then press Command or Control C to copy it to the clipboard. Let's go back to the composite channels, back to our layers, and we create a new blank layer, and just press Command or Control V to paste that alpha channel onto this layer. So now it's no longer an alpha channel, it's a regular black and white layer. And like we did before, I'm going to change the blend mode. And here you could experiment with different blend modes. We could see what Vivid Light might look like. It's a little too harsh. I think we might have to go with Overlay. There, I think that looks pretty good. But now what I want to do is mask part of this in to this image. And I want it to look just like this. So I'm going to go ahead and put a layer mask on here that reveals all. And then we're going to go over here into the layers, or actually the toolbar, and grab the gradient tool. And making sure up here we're using the foreground to transparent. And let's make sure we are using black as our foreground color. Then I'm just going to come in from each of the sides of this image, holding down the Shift key, coming in from the outside in, and just draw a gradient around from each side coming in to mask that effect. Now, here's what I've done. If I Option or Alt click directly on the layer mask, we can see what the actual layer mask looks like. And this is it. So now the areas that are light, that are white and kind of go out are showing transparency, and the dark areas are masking the effect out altogether. I actually want the opposite of this to be happening. So I'm just going to invert the values of this layer mask by simply pressing Command or Control I. So now when I reactivate the layer mask, you can see if I toggle this on and off, it's affecting the sky now and not the surfer. So that looks pretty good. But now I'm going to increase the contrast of this a little bit by making a duplicate of that original duplicate that we made, just like that. Now, you can notice it's given me a lot more dramatic look here, but it's oversaturating the surfer tremendously. You can see right there. And I actually don't want that. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and create another layer mask on this layer, again using that gradient tool, but this time we're going to use the second gradient, which is the radial gradient. And again, using from black to foreground to transparent, I'm just going to draw a gradient out from the center of the surfer out. And I can just add others around here. And that will reduce the saturation that's concentrated on the surfer, but leaving all the saturated colors around the surfer in place. So now, over here down in this bottom left corner, I've got a little too much white. It's just blowing out all my highlights and everything really bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this original duplicate layer that we created, and using that same gradient tool, using a linear gradient this time, I'm just going to draw a small gradient in right from the bottom there. And you can see it really makes or brings out some of the darker detail of that water a little bit, kind of balancing out the composition here. So I think that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to do one last thing. Now, I want to sharpen this, and I obviously can't go in and sharpen each layer. I mean, I could. It may not give me the result I'm looking for. So, I mean, and at this point, some people will probably flatten their image and then do these effects. I'm going to do that, but in a different way. I don't want to flatten this image because I may want to come back and alter some of these layers after I'm done. So what I'm going to do is if you hold down the Option or Alt key and then go into the flyout menu here and choose Merge Visible. Now make sure you have your topmost layer highlighted when you do this. So I'm holding down the Option or Alt key, go into the flyout menu and choose Merge Visible. What it will do is flatten your image and then pop it up onto its own layer. So now you can see, if I turn all these layers off, our image is still intact. It's all on one layer now, but we still have our original layers if we need to go back and edit the image. Then all I'm going to do in this layer is go under Filter to Sharpen, and I'm going to choose Smart Sharpen. And let's zoom this out here so we can see the result here. And you really want to use a large amount here. I think 200 is pretty good. And the radius, I'm going to go and leave it 2. If I toggle the preview on and off, you can see a dramatic difference. You can see what's going on up in here. Watch. Preview on, preview off. So it's giving that much more dramatic look. I can probably even take this up to about 250. Give it really, really dramatic. So there we go. So that is pretty much it. It's taking that really just simple photo and duplicating a few layers, applying a few effects, working with a few channels, and getting a really interesting effect in there. So if you see the before and after, if I just Option click the background layer here, that's what we started with. That's what we finished with. Really cool stuff. You guys take care. We'll see you next time.